it's this bottle is only it's a reserve distillery that you can only buy there, and it's just this baby blue bottle. I mean, it's not overly expensive, but it kind of looks like my watch. So I Googled. I'm like Bushmills baby blue whiskey or something, and to see if it came up, and it came up, and so I sent the screen capture to this guy. And by the way, if you're listening at home, the reason why I'm telling this story is the person that's about to ask a question is wearing a Dublin, Ireland shirt. So there you go. How are you? How are you related to Zach?
I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
No, they just sat at the table.
Oh, okay.
I'm a single that said, here, sit here. I said, I don't want to take up a whole table. Just sit down.
All right, nice. I like your Jason Zucker hat there. Is that a Jason Zucker hat?
Yes.
Shoot more, yep.
Shoot more. There you go.
Yep.
It's one of the ones he had last year.
Yep. What's up?
I got a question about Victor Rask, one of your favorites.
Oh, great.
You wrote an article today or I read it today about people that would have to go up or down for forwards and centers, and they'd have to go through waivers, and Rask would have to go through waivers. Mm-hmm. So my question is, why not send him down, put him on waivers, and
nobody will take him. He's got 3 years left at $4 million. So it's just if you're Craig Leopold, do you really want to pay this guy $4 million down in the minors to go play there when there's no benefit? They don't need the cap space. The only benefit would be is if they at the end of training camp just think, all right, these 2 players need to be on this team. But if Victor Rask is not going to play, if he's going to be the 13th forward, and you're just sending him down to have somebody else make the team, so they are the 13th forward, it probably is not worth it to you. The only thing they get from a cap relief standpoint if they send him down is like $900-something thousand bucks, and they have $3.9 million of cap space, so it's not something that's a pressing matter right now. But if all of a sudden, like they just say, we have to have Drew Stafford on the team, or we have to have Nico Sturm or Jerry Mayhew on the team, then maybe they would do that. But again, a lot will depend on injuries. And I still am, one of those people. I saw Rask at the captain's practice the other day, and he looks to me like he's lost some weight. Not that he was overweight to begin with, but he looks really lean. Looks like, so to me, that's a sign that he must have worked hard this summer. And it's going to be up to him to try to push and take jobs from other people. I mean, if we're already talking that they're going to put Ryan Donato or Jordan Greenway at center, then maybe all of a sudden, Victor Rask has an opening to make this team and be in a role where he could actually do something. So I just think it's early in camp before we have to start worrying about that stuff like that. JT Brown's the one that's probably in real danger of losing his job because it's a nothing. You pay him $600,000 to go to the minors or whatever it is, and it's just an easy move. But no owner, for a guy that already has this $80 million payroll, no owner wants to just go pay a guy $4 million to be in the minors. So
good question. Thank
Especially
you.
one that's not in the last year of his deal. I mean, that's the thing. It's
right.
Like if you piss off, it's not that you piss off. It's not that you're worried about pissing off Victor Rask. But what if in the next 3 years? He does something. He's somebody that you're going to need. Now you've kind of alienated him. What if you put him on the team and he somehow plays well and gets a role and he could actually be somebody that you could trade because of it? To just throw him through the dumpster right off the hop because he was traded for Nino just makes very little sense. What's up?
How are you, Mike?
How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
Tim, I also want to remind people that we have Brian from Tin Shed is giving away tickets. Wild tickets, come up here, fill in the information. We will pick a winner. Again, that is not through us so much as that is from Brian from Tin Shed, giving away tickets to bring people in the door. So talk it up. Tell people to come out. They'll have a chance to win some tickets. And we're joined now by Tim Yoder. Tim, as I was saying earlier, did what was one of the original shows on my network. He did a great job with the Viking Update show. By the way, we will end up changing the name here soon. We've been just kind of carrying on the Tim Yoder tradition.
He just met with his attorney today, too.
Yeah. and so Tim, worked covering the Vikings. I started covering the Vikings in 1990. Tim started like the mid-90s. Did it forever. Now he got a great opportunity to go work for Best Buy. So unfortunately, he's leaving the network. But he lives in the area. I wanted to say hello. If you would all do me a favor, give him a hand for coming out today and for doing such a great job on our network. So how's life in the real world?
In corporate USA?
Yeah.
It's going well, except, we had a little threat at the building yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, man,
yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
that's...
You should have read your newspaper.
Just you specifically or everybody?
No, it was to everybody,
Okay,
as far
just
as I
making
know.
sure. Well, I was saying, do we really know?
Yeah. So apparently that was cleared up, but it's interesting going from a smaller work environment to 4 buildings where there's 5,000 people. But, it's going well. I like it.
Good. And
hey, you know what? The hours allow me to do things like this and whatever
Right.
I want at night. So that's a whole different ball game from.
Well,
I still remember
the
like it
reporter
was
world.
yesterday, the 3 of us meeting at that Starbucks in Edina to discuss starting this
right.
network.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim also.
That's when Jim's like, hey, you want to come in with it like 50-50 with me? And I'm like, no effing way. Not a chance.
Wise decision, Michael. But Tim, like Michael and I often talk about on this show, it's Tim started covering the Vikings back when sports writing and beat writing were very different. When we spent a lot of our time sitting at somebody's locker talking to them one-on-one, and the business has changed a bit.
Yeah, and you can vet out a story a little bit more then.
Yes.
You can take time with it because if you have some interviews that other people don't have, then you can work the story a little bit more and go a little more in depth. And so those are things that I miss. But you know what? Everything changes. It's a different world in the media these days.
Yeah, I remember when you could actually like if news broke during lunch, you could actually finish your
Finish
meal.
lunch. Yeah. I know.
Well,
I mean, that's the way it used to be. I was a beat writer for a long time, and you would work a story all day. Your goal was to have either news to yourself in your paper in the morning, or at least have a better version of a story than your competition in the morning paper. So you might get like a scoop at 10 in the morning, and then you just play defense and hope nobody else got it until the morning. Now it's got to be on Twitter or on your website instantaneously.
And imagine this: you could actually get interviews alone with players and coaches. And nowadays, just about any time you walk up to a player, there's another reporter or blogger following you around.
Yeah.
And so it's harder to develop relationships with players.
I was just talking to our new Canucks writer, who's a young kid, up and coming kid, and he was just called me to just sort of ask advice for the first 4 or 5 days of training camp, and that's one of the things I told him. Like, it's a different market, Vancouver, than Minnesota. It's like, I don't know in Vancouver if you could get alone time with Jim Benning to just introduce yourself and go to coffee with him, with Travis Green. Go up to Elias Pettersson, say, hey, you want to get a coffee after practice? Where it's like in Minnesota, I mean, it's just that way. If I'm setting up a lunch with Matt Zuccarello, it's just a different. I don't know. It's a different world here. Yesterday, it's like if I needed Guerin about Fiala, I texted Guerin about Fiala. I don't know if you could do that at other markets, but that's to me the way that this job used to be done and has continued to be done, at least here covering the Wild.
Yeah, it's probably a little different in hockey. I mean, with the NFL, it's tougher to get the one-on-ones and really develop relationships. I think back in the mid-'90s when I started, it was a lot easier. You could sit around and talk to a player for 20, 25 minutes a day and do that a couple times a week. Now, it's not only that there are more people in media and more people interested in the NFL, but it's also it wears on the players when it's 20 reporters all trying to get their time throughout the week. And so,
it is a different animal covering that league as opposed to the NHL when there's really just a handful of beat writers usually, especially on the road when that's my favorite time to cover any team is because you actually get there, you get alone time with these guys. They have nowhere to be, don't have to get home, especially on the Minnesota Wild. I mean, after practice, they want out. They all got 3-4 kids, their wives that want a little bit of a respite so they can go do their thing in the afternoon, let Zach and Ryan and all those guys take over being Mr. Mom type thing. Where on the road, it's like they'll hang out with you and talk forever because they got nowhere to be other than the hotel.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen in football either because they're out of there like that. They're coming back home. Usually the writers are there 6-8 hours later than the players, or maybe overnight even on the Sunday games. So it's different, but things change. You try to adapt.
Yeah, I remember it was last season. I was leaving the arena for I can't remember, way late. And I sent out a tweet of the dark building or something, and it was like Boudreaux or somebody texted me. He's like, "What are you still doing at the arena?" I'm like, "This is what it's like every night." You think that these stories write themselves?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because we, now that I've taken a job that's basically a 9-to-5 job, We tell people there were Sunday night, Monday night games. I would get home, say hi to my wife who was getting up to go work out, and I would go to bed, and get up, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. But, sometimes you are getting home at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Remember 2014, Jim and me, Jim and I were in Colorado, and Nino scores that overtime winner, and we finally finish up around 2:30, and then he and I had to figure out, all right, well, we have a flight in 4 hours back to Minnesota. How the hell do we get to Chicago at the same time? And so we're sitting there in the press room trying to figure out how we're getting where and where we're going, and about within 4 hours later. Again, different type of world.
Yeah, I think we slept for an hour, then we went to the airport.
Yeah.
I think we flew through Minneapolis to get to Chicago.
I think that's the way we did it.
Yep.
We just figured out, let's get a round trip to Chicago and just pray our flights on time so we don't.
And we made it.
Yeah, we did make it.
My favorite
I just
one-
remember that press conference where at the Sutton River, where it's 5 p.m. because they had to make a late press conference because the game one of the next series started 2 days later,
right? And
the team flew that day as well into Chicago, but they had to make all the availability 5 or 6 p.m. because the beat writers all had to fly in from Denver, and it was all of us were just like The Walking Dead,
There's a lot of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
zombies.
I remember the NFC Championship game when the Vikings lost to New Orleans, and I was down there, and I had to have two plans at that time. It was, okay, if they lose, then I got to go to Mobile, Alabama to cover the Senior Bowl that week. If they win, then it's all about the Super Bowl. So I basically had a one-way flight down to New Orleans. I was in the stadium till, I think, 2 a.m., something like that. Left the stadium, drove overnight through the bayou, saw the sunrise in Mobile, Alabama, and just slept for 2 hours and went and covered the Senior Bowl after that.
Yeah.
It's a goofy job. It really is. Hey,
remember that game 7, we had the if they win in advance, but if their season ended,
right,
and then trying to everything you'd write in this file that you'd have to maybe put in this file, and it was just getting all confusing.
And I admit that was the worst story I've ever written.
And then you have LaPanta coming up and chirping us, and I freaking snapped on him.
Yes, that was awesome. That's my favorite LaPanta moment is when he
comes up, he goes, "Hey," he goes, "How did that Spurgeon tying goal with 2 minutes left affect your story?" And I just turned to him "Not now, LaPanta!" And he just stormed away. I'm get the hell away from me right now. So,
is there a Russo podcast that goes without a LaPanta story?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
No, we always mention watches. We usually mention candles. We always mention Boudreaux. We always mention Fenton, and we always mention LaPanta.
Yeah, usually
and
it's
Mom and Mrs. Taven.
Well.
Yeah.
Anybody can.
What have you bought
this show.
online recently that people need to know
He
about?
went to Vegas and bought a $8 million watch. So he didn't have to
the
shop
thing
on
I've
it
become
anymore.
addicted to online is Robin.
Don't admit it.
This is bad, but that stock site Robinhood. I cannot stop putting money into that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
There's just a stock site Robinhood, and you can buy stocks, and you basically day trade on there. And
sounds like a great idea.
And then Brian, you'll love this. And then I'm buying stock based on the way some people would pick horses. I'm I kind of like that name. Nabor Industries. And then so I bought 50 shares of Nabor Industries, and then I look and they got the thing how many people tell you to buy that stock and how many people tell you to don't. And I look afterwards, I'm everybody tells you don't buy that stock. So anyway, yeah, that's who hit a homer there? Nice.
Polanco. There you go. Well, hey, Tim, I appreciate everything you did for the network. I appreciate you stopping by tonight. If you want to hang out for a beer, I'm buying. I don't know what your schedule is if you need to rush home. Any final thoughts while you're here with us?
Well, I think, as far as football goes, I think Zimmer kind of got what he wanted now. He's got a run-first team, and I'm curious to see if that's going to hold up throughout the season. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, people are really excited about the season, so that's good.
It's going to be a fun year. I mean, we know how it's going to go. We know how it's going to end. But until they get to the ending, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. It always is. I mean, there's going to be drama throughout
so
the
negative.
season. Always
I
is.
know. Mr. Fenton Basher, I'm the negative
How about
one.
Antonio Brown? I mean, what a train wreck. And I just love that he social media is his way off the Oakland Raiders, and within a second, Belichick's well, I got no soul. I'll just sign him. And then a minute later, he's got like accusations up the yin yang for sexual assault, and
I love
it's